So quick refresher on my computer here. I've got a folder called Web 250 working with an exclamation point in front of it, so it's alphabetized at the top. I would never name something like that on the web server, however. I've got this file called firstpage.php. When we look at this file in Notepad++, it looks like this. It's a basic HTML5 page with a little bit of code in here. Not much else, but it is saved as a .php, which means I cannot view it locally because it won't execute. I'll just see code if I open it in a browser. And I've got WinSCP open to where I can upload this to a domain called yetis.us into a folder called Web250. And then I can view that here on yetis.us in my Web250 folder, and it's called firstpage.php. So now, in the very short time I have now, because I've got to go pick up my kids from robotics, I'm going to show you how to incorporate some PHP into that. And at the simplest level, all we're going to do is put a bracket and an exclamation point in the letters PHP, give ourselves a little space, and do the exclamation point and close it. And what we've done is we've created a PHP tag, and everything in here will be rendered by the server as PHP code. Then what do? We're going to type echo, open close parentheses. We're going to put yo, 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 what's up? Why? Because hello world just gets boring. So we did that, and if we did this correctly, basically echo outputs whatever is in here to the web browser. It sends it with all the other HTML. So the server takes this PHP code. Echo means just spit that out just like the other text, and when we look at it in the browser, it should look the same. Control S to save, Alt Tab to WinSCP and drag it over. Go to the browser and look at it. Refresh, and we get yo 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 was up. Now this appeared above some kind of page. Did we want that? Well, before we do that, let's look at the source code. Notice what happens is in the source code we do not see any PHP, we see straight HTML. And if we're HTML snobs, which we should be, we realize this is not clean HTML because that content is not inside any tag. So it generated properly, but we didn't generate, good HTML code, but it did work. So we'll close that source code. We'll come back to Notepad++, and we look at it, and what we want to do is clean this up by putting some HTML. We'll put a heading 1 in there and close that heading 1. Again, this should be old news for you guys. If it's not, you need to go brush up on your HTML. Save it, upload it, and look at it. And now we've got that H1 rendering, and if we view the page source, you can see that this is a much cleaner code. So now we've done a couple of round trips, and now what can we do with PHP? I'm keeping this one really short. I'm up to 3 minutes. I'm going to just show you why it would actually benefit to have some PHP code. What if we wanted this blah-de-blah to repeat several times? Well, what we can do here is actually add that PHP and add that echo. We're going to put quotes around everything that we want to repeat. We end every line with a semicolon. So notice we can have interspersed multiple tags. And I can, on this last tag, I'm just going to put it's over now. And so we do echo blah-de-blah, and okay, so that's no different from what we did up there with the yo yo yo, but I tend to be conservative. I want to see it work every time. Before I add code to it, I make sure I've got open my quotes and close my quotes. Make sure there's no special characters in there, because if there were no apostrophe or quotes in the text, it would interfere with these quotes. So save it, come back around to upload it, view it, and sure enough it does output, but now it doesn't look that impressive. It just has output what we could have done in the first place. So why would you bother with PHP? Well, here's where it gets fun, because we can do something like a for loop, and we can put I equals 0, I less than 100, we'll put 101, and I++, and we wanted to write really clean code, and this is a for loop. So hopefully you've had a little bit of programming before and you know about a for loop, but if you don't, what it says is, here's a variable called I, and in PHP we have to put a $sign in front of that, and we're going to initially set that to 0, and as long as that is less than 101, we're going to keep going through and repeating this code. So from here to here is just going to go again, and each time it repeats, it's going to take I and add 1 to it. So I++ is like saying I plus equals, right? So saying I equals 1 plus I, and we'll put a $sign there. I'm always forgetting. I do so many different kinds of code. I have to remind myself, oh, this is PHP. And then we may even want to add a count, but we'll worry about that in a minute. Make sure this runs. I save it, go back around, upload it, come back to the browser, refresh it, and look what I get. Blah-de, 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 blah. So you want to do something a bunch of times, that's a great way to do it. So we now have that 100 times. And it looks like we might have it a bit more than 100 times. It looks like I've got it infinite times. So this is not sort of your optimal situation. So I've created an infinite loop, which is just going to go on forever. Now this is actually an interesting conundrum. I don't know that I've done this before, and I don't know what it does to my web server. I don't know whether it will crash it or that they'll detect a malicious script, or whether I can terminate it by stopping there. So that's actually interesting. So I was able to terminate that. I think this is far more than, let me make this window, reducify the window. I think this is a lot more than 100. It just kind of kept going and going and going till I killed it. So what would cause this loop to keep going? I is less than 101, I equals 0, I++. I don't know. But that's an interesting conundrum. So what I like to do is figure, well, whenever something goes wrong, we might want to look up a way to do it right. But I've actually spotted my error, and after a while you get pretty good at it. You have to use the right variable name. In this case, my variable name is $I, and guess what? That one doesn't have the $sign in front of it. So I put the $sign in front of it, and I'm pretty confident that was the thing, so I'm going to go ahead and add a count in here, and I'll put number, well, we want to put a number right in front of it, so I'm going to put quote here, and add these together, and I'm going to put a $I. So what it's going to do in this case is actually the first time it'll put 0, and the second time it'll put 1, and so on. And then I'm going to put a period to go after it, or we'll put a parentheses. And now it's going to say 1 parentheses space blah de blah, 2 parentheses space. Well, actually it starts at 0, so it's going to do that. But let's just make sure it works again. Like I said, I'm conservative. I do have to upload it. If I didn't upload it, I would be still running that infinite loop. Hopefully it's not still chugging away on my server. It's quite possible that it could be. And refresh. And now, whoa, look at that. 0, 1, 2, 3, over now. So we made it all the way to 100. We went from 0 to 100, but we didn't get our other stuff. So what's happening here? So what did we do wrong here? And remember I said I have to get my kids? Well, so let's see, P plus I plus, so what happened here? We added the number, and then we had the quotes. We closed the quotes. So sometimes the color of the text here gives us an inclination. I can actually zoom in on this a little bit, see what's going on, and use the colors to guide me. What I see is purple for open parentheses, and notice when I put my cursor over this, it shows both sides of it. When I put my cursor over this quote, we have open quote, close quote, and then we have plus, and then we have the variable, and then we have open quote again, but oh, is it possible that this close parentheses is confusing this? It doesn't look like it, because when we highlight this, it highlights the other one. And is it possible this is all coming out right? So I actually don't really know what's going on right there. So I'm going to go back and look at the source code for the page. We got that. I view the source code. and all it's doing is just going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's just putting them all in a row. And this highlights the fact that PHP is a little bit hard to debug because it's not like we just got an error. There are tools for doing it, but I want to get you guys started with the basics without those tools. So what can I do here? What are my options? I have to think, what should I think? But you don't want to watch me thinking, so let me pause while I think. So having thought about it for 39 seconds or so, I'm coming up with a couple of things. This is a number. It's a variable that holds a number, and I'm actually trying to add a string to it. Now I would expect it just to put bracket p, close bracket, and the number. In fact, it's probably not doing that. It seems to be just giving the number and ignoring these things in quotes, which doesn't really make sense to me. However, like I said, I get confused with my languages, so what I'm going to do is go on over to good old Google and search on PHP concatenation. Concatenation is a fancy word for sticking two things together. And we have string concatenation, string variables, and this is W3 Schools where I'm going to ask you to do a lot of the tutorials. But here's another one, PHP F1, and here's string operators. So I can look at the string operators and oh darn, I forgot that PHP doesn't use plus like lots of other languages, it uses a dot. So there you go. What does that mean? Well, here's an example. Here's the variable that's hello, and here's one that's world. And if you want to put them together, you actually, I'm sorry, this one is you add a to world, and so you do a dot world. So the dot is in effect working just like the plus sign. So we'll go back to Notepad++, and instead of these pluses, I put a dot, which is the same as a period. This is kind of one of those paradigm shifts, like you remember when you were in elementary school and you had to learn, you learned that times became an asterisk or a bullet instead of the x. And I was like, whoa, whatever happened to my x was times? But no, now x is a variable. So we do this, and we hope to get a better result. We save it. Alt-tab back to an SCP. And it's critical that what I'm doing here you be completely comfortable with. If there's any steps in here you're not comfortable with, you've got to do it, pause it, watch it, rewind it, watch it again, until you can do this as second nature. Because in the future I may not actually show you all the uploading and renaming and so on. That's just part of your base knowledge you've got to build on. We're going to get into much more detail, and I've already taken almost 13 minutes for this one, just uploading this basic thing. So we're not going to waste a lot of time with the uploading and the renaming and those little bits of code. You need to know what I'm doing, and if you don't, you need to stop and figure it out, or ask, or something like that. So we go back to the browser, we'll go to the page, and we'll refresh it, and now we get more what I had in mind, blah-de-blah-de-blah repeated. If we view the source code, you see that it generated the paragraph tag, the number, the closing paragraph, the opening, and so on. So the only thing we could really fix here is we don't really want to start our numbers at 0, we want to start at 1. And we went all the way to 100, which was good. So what do we do there? Well, we want 100 items, so we actually, in this case, have 101, don't we? Because 0 counts as 1, and then 100, 1 through 100. So that's a pretty easy fix. We go back in, and we are going to change the counter to 1. So we go up to 101. If you wanted to do 100 here, which might feel a little more intuitive, we're going to do while I is less than or equal to less than or equal to 100. So it'll include, it's 100 inclusive. So we could do less than 101, or we could do less than or equal to 100. So it's one of those things, you remember when you were a kid and you said, are you want to get the kids movie price, and are you less than 12? And you're thinking, if I'm 12, I'm not less than 12, but I could pretend I'm less than 12. So less than is very different from less than or equal to, which is very different than greater or greater than or equal to. And they can all be used in the right context as long as you know what you're doing. So less than or equal, want to make sure the syntax works, and otherwise I think I'm about done there. I'm not sure I really want to have a whole paragraph there, so what I'm going to do is actually move the paragraph out like so and put a line break, so br/, and then what I'll do is I can actually put the paragraph tag up here outside of the PHP, and when we open we always close, and I can put them down here. Now I could just as well have put it inside here with an echo. So for example, I could do that, or I can put it here and do this. But you see there's a lot more typing if I'm okay just going out to HTML. So putting it here is simpler. There are times when you want to do both or either depending on what's going on. So this gives you essentially the same result as this. This requires less processing because it's just giving the text. This has to actually generate that and provide it as text. All of this is combined and then sent out, and the browser renders it. So we made that slight change. We're going to go ahead and save it and then call it on this exercise. We upload. By the way, there are tools and shortcuts within WinSCP that will automatically synchronize this. I invite you to explore, particularly up here it says for files. Let's see. Compare directories, keep remote directory up to date, synchronize browsing. I did one time mess this up and wipe out a whole directory of years of work. Fortunately, I didn't really need it, but you want to be careful about that. So maybe test it with a couple files before you go whole hog. So then finally we go to our browser. We're going to refresh that page, and now we go from 1 to 100, and you notice things are much tighter because these are just line breaks, and we can confirm that by putting in this and that. And then, just because this page is so hideous, I'm going to finish off by very quickly introducing an embedded style sheet. Or never mind, you guys can figure that out, or we'll do that later because I'm over 15 minutes. Thanks.